Hi guys, it's Lana and welcome back to my channel for another video. Now today's video is going to be a little bit different. So you've previously seen one of my other videos where it was all about Ella and my journey with her over the years, and today's video is going to be all about Dave. So through this video I'm going to go through, show you a few clips of what we've been up to over the years. Had him since he was 6 months old, so you know, we've been on quite a little journey together, and technically our journey is still only at its very beginning, so let's get into it. So when we first met Dave, it was at the Bluewood Stud, and he hadn't even been weaned off his mum, and he was so small. He was literally the cutest thing I ever did see, and his movement was so gorgeous, and his character is still as cheeky as it was back then. So he is by Elfenstein out of Donau-Kaiserin, and at this point he didn't even have a name. They just knew it had to begin with a D, and so he was christened Dave. But I have now picked out his show name, so he is known as Donau-Krieger. So the story behind their names is that they're all named of the Danube. So Dave is Star's brother, so their mum was called Donau-Kaiserin, which is Empress of the Danube. Star is Donaustern, which is Star of the Danube, and Dave is Donau-Krieger, which is Warrior of the Danube, which makes sense because he's a little warrior troublemaker. But he has always loved his scratchies from day dot, so I always made sure it was really important that I spent lots of quality time in the field with both my boys, as seeing as they were both youngsters, Star was only 2 and Dave was only just turning into a yearling, so I made sure to spend as much time in the field with them as possible, whilst also still giving them the chance to grow up and just be horses for a bit before they entered into ridden life. And Dave and Star actually stayed out until Star was ready for work. So once winter rocked round, they stayed in a barn for the duration of the winter, so they weren't exposed to the elements so much. And this was their first time seeing the tractors going by, and then they spent their first ever time in the school seeing mirrors for the very first time. As you can see, both boys are very discombobulated by the entire idea, but they had a great time just playing around and having a good time. So I made sure that even though when they were in the barn during the winter, they could still go out and have a bit of fun in the school, because that's really important, that they got to just chill and live out their lives being youngsters for a bit. And as you can see here, Dave was always a little bit funny and feral to catch sometimes, so bringing Star in to make sure that Dave came in with him, because he was such a loyal boy, he would just follow on behind. Now this is the very first time Star and Dave ever went out with Ella, and as you can see, it was pure pandemonium. All three of them were absolute chaos, which is quite cool because they're all related. Then Dave here is just acting like he pays his own vet bills as per usual and decided to try and climb on Star. I never claimed he was the brightest of the bunch, I will say that. Of course, come Christmas time, it was absolutely necessary that we had a Christmas shoot, even when Dave's trying to eat Ella's tinsel, but he looked so adorable with the bow on his head. Then he had his first dentist appointment where we looked at his parrot mouth, and then he had a saddle on for the very first time. Now don't judge me because these pictures were taken in the dark, but he looked so cute, and that was actually the first day he ever wore boots. Of course, now he's all tacked up, it's time to start work. So my original plan was to lightly back him and then leave him for the winter, so he can just see me having him on the lunge and I'm teaching him to go off my voice commands, because obviously when I'm going to be on top of him, he's not going to know what my aids mean. He's going to be entirely off my voice or whoever's in the middle lunging me if it gets to that point. But he was such a good boy, and honestly I've never met a more clever horse in my life. He picked up the cues so quickly. Now this is my first time properly getting on him. None of the mountain blocks were tall enough to be able to lean over him, so I had to literally use the stirrup from day dot, and he was such a good boy. This is literally the first time I've ever been on his back, and he didn't even flinch, bless him. He was absolutely amazing. So you can see that I'm staying down for the first few steps because I want to make sure that he's comfortable. And then once we established he was, I was able to sit up and we had a little walk around. Now this was actually enough for him. I was quite happy to leave it there. He's had someone on his back, he knows what it means, and so as far as I'm concerned he could now enjoy a nice time in the field for the winter, only to go back to big boy school once summer rolls back around. So he got to enjoy a lovely time back in the field with his brother and his cousin, because he's actually distantly related to Ella as well, which is quite cool. So I've got a full little family tree. And you know, he's still not too keen on being left out on his own, so he still manages to come running up to the gate, even if he knows that might mean he's getting lunch today. But through the winter, they absolutely loved playing in the snow all together, and it was so sweet to see the boys just having so much fun, even if Ella didn't really want to get involved. This being the first time I'd had youngsters, it was quite funny to see all the shenanigans they got up to. Especially Dave. There was always something new with Dave every day. So this is me teaching him the very first steps towards piaffe and passage, getting him to pick up his legs when I tap the stick. And personally, I think here he's got the beginnings of Spanish walk. Like I said, I've never met a horse so clever in my life. And then here I'm just jumping up and down next to him, using the saddle as leverage, and that's him getting used to me being next to him. So obviously this is the next summer, so I'm getting him used to having people around him again. And then I'm just walking next to him, using the reins as you would if you were riding, and so he gets used to those cues as well. Now unfortunately I didn't have anyone on the ground to help me, so I decided to send him away for backing. So he went to Chris Wilby's, which is actually based at Herds, and he absolutely loved it there. So this is his first time getting the tack on. That's Chris getting him tacked up there, and he's doing lunging for his very first day there, just while they get a feel for each other. Now Dave absolutely looked lovely, and this is his first time in this school. So this is Chris just leaning over him for the first time. You can see him tapping him all down his sides so that Dave knows what it means when he gets the legs down there. And then they're just having a little walk around in the stables. Now Chris decided to do it in the stables because that's where the horse's safe place is. So if they're going to do any shenanigans, they're on the hard ground, so they're less likely to do it because it'll hurt their feet a bit more. And they're just in their safe, comfortable place. They're not in the unfamiliar, work environment of the school. So the stables seemed like a good idea, and Dave seemed really into it. You can see on those turns there, he looks like Bambi on ice. It's so cute. He just can't quite figure out what to do with his legs. And then whilst I was away at Sheepgate, I was getting these lovely videos through on WhatsApp showing Dave out hacking and just enjoying life as a riding horse. So then as soon as I was back from Sheepgate, I went and had my first sit of the year on him, and he was such a good boy. Now what Chris has had Dave doing, because he's quite a sparky horse, is take him straight out for a hack. So he's less bothered about someone being on him, he's more bothered at trying to spook everything else on the hack. So that way he's not focusing on the fact that there's someone on him, he's focusing on all of his surroundings. And he was such a good boy, taking what was an unfamiliar rider because he's not had me on properly before. And we even met a truck for the first time. Look at him, he looks so confused. He's such a good boy. Now I was so excited to be on him, and you can see him here. So this is actually where a tractor comes past, and he wasn't sure about that at all. So after such a good little ride there, I hopped off, and I was super excited for the next time I'd be coming back to jump back on him again. So this was Dave's first ever time in the school, and you can see him being such a good boy. So he's getting trotted around there. You can see that Chris has got a really light seat and that he's just really not getting in his face whatsoever, just letting Dave get his own balance. So then I went up the next day, and this is Chris riding him whilst I'm there, and he just looked absolutely lovely. So of course I couldn't wait to get my turn. So you can see me here, I'm just getting on him really lightly, and I was so nervous to be going in the school for the first time. So you'll see me when I'm walking around, I look so stiff. And the thing is, I'm not scared of him, like his age doesn't bother me or anything like that. It's the fact I'm really worried at this crucial stage in his life that I'm going to mess up. So I went so stiff here. So his walk is not as big as and sexy as when Chris is on him. But I get used to it, and we get used to each other. So this was Dave and I's very first trot, and you can see that we start off really strong here. I felt great, honestly. It felt like I was on an older horse. It felt awesome. And then Dave farts, scares himself, and we have a little panic there. But I popped him back into trot and just said, look, we'll just carry on. And he was such a good boy. This is genuinely going to be the mantra for the entire video, just me saying how much of a good boy he is. And at only 4 years old, I am so excited for his future. So as you can see here on the left rein, he's not quite as supple as he is on the right rein. He struggles to find his balance a bit more. So I'm just trotting along the straight and then walking along the corners just until he gets the feel for me and I get the feel for him. So obviously every horse is going to have one rein that's stronger than the other, and at that very first stage, that's just what it is with him. And you know what, both Ella and Star have stronger reins too, so I'm not bothered at all. And then this was my ride on him the day we moved, so I'm taking him back to our yard now, so where I can continue his education at home. You can see his head's just moving a little bit, and that's just because he's using his head and neck to balance, so he goes from curled up to up in the air, just because he's trying to find his feet now with the rider on him. So this early on, I'm making sure to do lots of transitions. The only way we're going to build those muscles is by doing plenty of transitions work. But to be fair, I could trot round on him all day. He feels great, even when we fall into walk. So after travelling like an absolute dream, he was finally back home after 5 weeks of being away, and to say I was excited for him to see everyone was an understatement. Even Loki's there to greet him. You see Ella looking summarily unimpressed, but Jensen gave him a good look before he went in. So Dave has never been to this stable yard before. We moved the day he went away for backing, so he's come to a completely unfamiliar environment. You can see him saying hello to Jensen there. So I was really interested to see how he'd get on. And do you know what? It was like he'd never left. The field was instantly pandemonium, as it always has been with him in it. It was so much fun to see them all having a little play and a good time, just refamiliarising themselves with each other. Jensen didn't want to get involved though. Dave, bless him, also couldn't figure out that he was on the wrong side of the fence, but luckily the other three came to tell him. So our first day of work with him at home, I was just going to lunge him, wanting him to get used to the school, and I'm just popping him over some poly jumps, poles, our little star cavaletti here, just to give him something to do and something for his mind. And he looks just as fabulous as the day we got him when he was such a tiny foal. We also had the top spec wave bridge, and to tell you what, he got on that like an absolute dream. Poor mum had Ella stand on her, whereas Dave just did it like a pro. So today was going to be the first day I got on him on my own at home. So I was a little bit nervous, so I made sure to lunge him first to make sure that he was, listening to me. He was realising what was going on, and he lunged really, really nicely. He seemed to be listening to what I was doing, and he was such a good boy. Now going to mount up, I couldn't replicate the setup that Chris had at his place. So as you can see here, it doesn't really work. Dave says no thank you. So after he kept moving away when I tried to get the mounted block next to him, I decided it would just be better to stop filming and get my mum to hold him just while I got on for the very first time, just to make sure that safety was the absolute key here. And this is his very first time walking around in this school with a rider on him, and he was such a good boy, especially as this particular school is known as the spooky school because it is a competition venue we're staying at as well, so everyone always dreads it when they're in this school for their tests. So I was really pleased by the fact that he was just unfazed. Then it was our very first trot, so I just did a trot down the long side at first just so he got his bearings, before then letting him trot up the next long side. Now I've got to make sure that I keep his trot nice and steady, because especially on the corners he just can't quite keep his balance. Even though he wants to give me full power, I just need to make sure that he is nice and chilled out so he can balance for those corners. Now he felt absolutely amazing, but I wanted to make sure that I had a little trot in the other rein before he got too tired, as not only has this been huge mentally for him to move, have what is essentially a new rider on him because he had got used to Chris in the meantime, and then to also be asked to do rhythm work, which he's not used to just yet. He was such a, I'm going to say it, a good boy. Then after we did our little schooling sesh, I decided to take him for a little hack around the car park because I still want him to go out and see lots of things, and we've got a road just next to where our car park is, so I took him right up there so we could see all the cars going really fast, get used to that and see it all. Then we saw a puddle on the floor and Dave decided he couldn't possibly. I must say I don't think I have an eventer on my hands if I do say so myself. But he was really, really good. We wandered around the car park and we went for a proper little explore. So that is the first time I've ever ridden him at home. To say I was nervous was an understatement, but he honestly put me at ease. I'm just so worried about messing it up with him, but he was such a good boy. Right then guys, so that is all from me today. I super hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I know I really enjoyed making this video for you guys. So that is Dave and I so far. He's had his first ride on home turf today. And you know what? There is so much more to come. So who knows? Maybe in another 2 years I'll do another one of these videos. But yes, I super hope you enjoyed this video. And until next time guys, from Dave and I, it is goodbye.